most important science? Now this question, I can easily give like a small answer, but I'm going to maybe make it a little bit long, about 5 minutes or so, only because of how many people ask this question also. Before giving an answer to this question, there's a number of principles that I want to mention, in regards to different sciences. The first is that there's a difference between saying maqam al-fadl wa maqam al-tafdil. Difference between saying that this science is beneficial and a difference between saying this science is the most beneficial. There's a difference between saying that this is beneficial and this is the most beneficial. So whenever we talk about which is the most important or the best or the most appropriate science to study, then it doesn't take away from any of the other Islamic sciences, because every single Islamic science, its virtue, its benefit, its station is established. In fact, any science that has benefit, then it is virtuous. But the question that we are talking about, it is which is the most virtuous. But this shows that what some people do is that they try to find out which is the most important science, and that's all they focus on. And they leave off the rest, they leave off all the other sciences. So for example, they'll take Aqidah and that's all they'll study. They know nothing about fiqh, nothing about tafsir, nothing about hadith, and so on. And that's a mistake, because we said all of the Islamic sciences have their station, they have their benefit and their own virtue. So this is the first point. The second point is that when we say which science is the best, then it's not something that you can just give a general answer. But saying which is the best, which is the most virtuous, which is the most beneficial, it has to be looked at from a number of different angles. You have to have a holistic look at it, because there's so many different factors that you are dependent upon before you say which is the most beneficial science. So we have to look at the subject matter. We have to look at the need of the people for that science. We have to look at the types of proofs which are used in that science, and so on. So this is the second principle. The third principle is that there's a difference between saying, or just because we say that one science is the best, it does not mean that every single issue in that science is better than every single issue in a different science. But rather, it's a general ruling. So again, some people, for example, will study Aqeedah and they think Aqeedah is the best, and that's it, they'll leave off every other issue. But there are some issues in other sciences which are more important than some issues of Aqeedah, because some issues of Aqeedah, some ulama differ over when it comes to not the foundational issues, but the other issues. Some issues Sahaba differed over, and so on. So for example, what's more important? Differing on an issue, for example, did the Prophet ﷺ see Allah Laylatul Isra wal Mi'raj, or learning how to pray your salah? Without a doubt, if a person doesn't know how to pray, learning how to pray salah is more important for that person. And the last principle which I want to mention is that, which is similar to this one, which is just because we say that one science is better than another science, it doesn't necessarily mean that that science is better than another science in every single scenario, because depending on the state of the people, it could differ. So, for example, if there's a certain fitna which is happening, or a certain situation which needs to be addressed at that time, then that will take precedence over talking about a different topic or a different issue. So with these principles in mind, the answer to the question is which is the best science to study, which is the most important science to study, which is the most virtuous science to study. There are two answers, depending on the intention of the person who's asking the question. If the person's intent is what to start off with, because a lot of students of knowledge do this, they mean what is the best science to start off with, then I will give the answer Shaykh Hitham Sarhan said, which is ibda, just start. Because there are some people, and I've met them, they'll ask me, what do you recommend for a beginner to start with? What should I do? What's the first book I should study? I meet them 2 years later, they ask me the exact same question. They're just asking and asking and asking. That's all they do. They don't actually go and learn. And because we mentioned that all of the Islamic sciences have the virtue, just go start, study. Just start. Don't delay. Don't let shaitan come to you through this avenue to allow you to procrastinate, to allow you to just 2 years later be in the exact same position you were 2 years before. 2 years, the Arabic Institute in Medina University is 2 years. A student learns the whole Arabic language, or how much Arabic they need to understand the Arabic books in 2 years. And I've met people 4 years later asking me the exact same question they were asking 3-4 years ago. So that's the first thing. A person wants to know what to start with, then just start. You see a lesson, start. As long as the teacher is trustworthy, knowledgeable, upon the correct aqidah manhaj, start. But the second answer is that if you do want to be a bit more academic in the answer of what is the most virtuous science, then the answer I will give, Wallahu alam, is the science of aqidah. Because if you look at it from all the different aspects, in terms of the subject matter, it's talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's talking about Allah. That's what Shaykh al-Islam, he said, al-ilmu al-a'la, al-ilmu bil-a'la. The highest knowledge is the knowledge of the highest. The highest knowledge is the knowledge of the highest. i.e., the highest in rank in terms of different sciences is the knowledge of Allah, the knowledge of the Most High, the one who is above His throne, subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you look at Aqidah from the aspect of its proofs, then it has the most strongest proofs. Whereas when it comes to fiqh, then some weaker hadith sometimes are used. There's a bit more leniency. Seerah, there's a lot more leniency, like Imam Ahmad mentioned, and so on. If you look at it from the need of the people, how much people need this science, then this is the science they need the most. And that's why the prophets and messengers were sent to people, because they were in need of somebody to come and to correct their beliefs. If you look at it from the aspect of also the effect that science has on other sciences, because Aqidah is the foundation of the religion, it also has an effect on the other sciences. And you can't fully understand other Islamic sciences if you don't have a good grasp of the science of Aqidah, especially sciences like Usul al-Fiqh or the Arabic language as well. So we'll stop here, inshallah. I don't want to make it too long. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us beneficial knowledge. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika, la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka.